Hey guys, and welcome back to the podcast this week. I'm super excited because this was such a sweet conversation that we got to have. It was kind of funny before we started. Matt and Jessica were just chatting, and I thought it would be great if us three just hopped on the podcast together and had a conversation about her story and her testimony and what God has done in her life. It is such a powerful message, and I encourage you. I know it's longer, but if you guys can listen to the whole thing, it is so good. A lot of the podcast platforms that you're listening on, you can actually change the playback speed to ×2 or ×1.5 or whatever works for you, so that way you can listen to it faster if you would like. But I know a lot of people listen to it while they're driving or getting ready in the morning and popping it on whenever you're cleaning or anything like that. But it's so good, and I really encourage you to listen to the whole thing. I will say before we get started, there is a couple things that I would definitely consider as trigger warnings. So we will be talking about miscarriage. We're going to be talking about some sensitive subjects, so viewer discretion is advised. So just so you guys know, it's not an episode that is for everyone's ears. So if any parents or anything out there, just know that. But I am so excited for you guys to hear Jessica's story and to hear what God has done in her life. But let's go ahead and get started. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Vessel of Light podcast. Today is going to be a very fun episode. I have Miss Jessica here, my bestie, and my husband,
Hi.
Matt. I'm so excited for today. Jessica's going to be chatting. We're just going to have some conversations and chat about what God is doing in life. It's not going to be anything super structured. We're just going to have a conversation, be real. Matt was a little bonus to our episode today. It was like very not planned, but we were talking, and there was multiple times where I was like, hold on, wait. I just feel like this would be good for someone else to hear as well. So we just hit record, and I was like, you should be on this. So here we are.
Here we are. Woke up out of bed and got pulled into a podcast.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so Jess, before we get started, I'm going to start us with a fun little question.
Okay.
So, tell me one fun fact that maybe someone doesn't know about you.
Oh, I always have a hard time with this question because I always come up with funny things.
That's okay, I love it.
But anything minty makes me sneeze.
Oh, yes! I remember one of the first couple times that I met you. You told me that. I was like, what?
What is wrong with you?
But no, it's a real thing.
Yeah. And Jade, who was on last week, is the same way. And I was like, I hope she doesn't say that because I'm going to say it.
That's funny.
But,
that's awesome.
Yeah. That, and I'm a new cat mom, and I'm in love.
Yeah.
And I've never been an animal person.
She was not. I had a cat, and Jessica would always come over, and she would just be like, oh, you're just not a big animal person. And now she's like a whole new person. She like sends me videos of her cuddling her little cat. And I'm like, Jessica, what is life right now, you little cat mom?
This is my baby.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. Okay. So I would love for you to just share a little bit about your story, your life, what God's doing in your life in this season, and just kind of go from there.
I have so many things.
Yeah. We talked about this beforehand, and Jessica was like, well, pick your trauma.
Exactly.
It's like, oh my gosh.
I guess I'll just share like most of my story, and then I'll tell you kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah.
So September 30th, 1989 now.
Back to the beginning.
It's almost my birthday. No, so I grew up as a pastor's kid most of my life. We were here in Sullivan for a while. I had at the time 3 brothers and 1 sister. And then I grew up in a really strict household.
Yeah.
Like only wearing skirts if you were dating 6 inches, no hands, no holding hands.
Oh
nothing.
my gosh.
Like very strict. And we were homeschooled a lot of our childhood. I didn't really have any friends other than friends at church, and our church was small, so really I had one really good friend.
Yeah.
And then I had, kind of like Jade, I had done the whole, like, I'm going to get baptized because my brother's getting baptized, and it sounds like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
So I did that a couple times, actually. I got baptized twice. And then one day I was at school. We went to a Christian school for a little while, and one day I was at school, and it was during Bible time, and I just really, like, felt that, like,
Pull.
yeah, like, you're not a Christian. You're not, you're not saved. You're not going to heaven right now. And so, I accepted Jesus in my heart then and got baptized for real after that.
Third time's a charm.
Yep.
Third time. And so, and I was 8. I think I said that. And then when I was, I think about 11, we moved from Sullivan to Piedmont, Missouri, where my parents started a Christian youth camp, and we had like horses for them to ride, and we did
so
like
crazy.
like preaching, and I don't think that they slept there, but they had to have. So I don't really remember. I don't remember a lot about my childhood, so I'm very much like through that part.
Yeah.
Were your parents still IFB then, like Independent and Fundamental Baptist at that point?
Yes,
Okay.
they were until I was an adult.
Yeah.
So, so we did that for a year or two, I think, which was really fun. We made some really good friends in Piedmont. We went to a Christian school there, and I had like 3 just best friends, and we just did everything together. It was super fun. That was a very like formative age, because like I said, I was like 10, 11, 12 when we left Piedmont. So it was really hard to leave them, and my parents told us we were going to be missionaries in the Philippines. So for a year, we bought a school bus and basically completely gutted it and turned it into like an RV, which was really cool.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
That is one part of my like childhood memories that I'm like, okay, that was cool. That was special. And that's like most of my childhood memories was being on the bus. We just went to state parks every week. Visited different state parks. Me and my siblings all had scooters. We rode around the state parks, swam in the swimming pools, played at the park.
Wow, because you guys were traveling across the states to raise money.
Yes,
to go,
I was going
right?
to say that. Yep. So we were raising money to go to the Philippines. So we went to a different church each week. My dad preached. We all sang. The whole like just traveling, I don't know, missionary life. It's just interesting how it all works. But so we did that for about a year, and the back 2 windows of the bus was a bedroom for all 4 of us kids. So wait, 4 or 5? 4.
Wow.
And no, 5. Yeah, 5 of us. And so me and my sister shared a bunk, and then there was a bunk above us for a brother, and then 2 bunks on the other side for my other brothers.
Gosh.
So it was really cool living in that. And then we went to the Philippines. I don't remember a ton about it. People ask me all the time, like, oh my gosh, that had to have been so cool. Like, what'd you do? How was it? I remember little pieces here and there. I loved the food.
How old were you again?
I was 12 when we left. But I love the food. The food's amazing. I remember we moved around a lot. Like, we probably moved 15 times in, like, 3 years. So, and not only to, like, different houses within the town, but, like, to different towns. The first town we lived in was very, I don't know what you call it, but, like, they had nothing.
Yeah.
Like, people lived in huts, and it was crazy. We didn't have electric or water for a long time.
Oh my gosh.
Our bathroom was, like, outside, just so different.
Yeah.
And so that was the first place we lived. Living there was really different, very much of a culture shock, especially as a 12-year-old. And then I forgot to say, I'm the second oldest, so my brother was 13, and then my 3 younger siblings were much younger. They were 8 and 9 years younger than me, and then the middle one was 3 years younger than me. So definitely a culture shock for all of us.
Yeah.
And then in that time, I was in a very bad relationship with somebody who was 5 years older than me. So I was 13, he was 18. And I was in a relationship with him the whole time we lived there. And I don't know, there's not much to say about that, really. Yeah. There's a lot of traumas, but so we thought we were going to get married, and my parents were like, you're not doing that, no way. And which, thank the Lord, that they had the wisdom to know that this was not a good idea.
Right.
So they said, okay, for the next year, you're going to go back to the States, and if you still feel like you want to marry him after that, then you can come back. And
how old were you at that point?
I think I was 17 at that point.
Got it.
And so, of course, I was angry at my parents for doing that to me, and it was horrible. But I came back and immediately, like, just loved my life. And so I ended up living with a pastor and his wife.
Because they stayed in the Philippines?
Yeah, so they all stayed in the Philippines, and I came back by myself. I forgot about Elijah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my 4th brother, who I didn't mention in the beginning because I wanted to talk about him, when we were not there very long, and somebody came and basically handed us a 1-month-old baby.
Oh my gosh.
And said to take him, basically. So we took him, we adopted him. He is old now. He's like 20-something. But he lives in the States now. He was adopted. We brought him here or whatever. So it's crazy.
It's such a unique childhood experience of a lot of different change, a lot of different seasons where you traveled around the States in a bus. You you were exposed to so many different people, and just probably stressed you a lot at such a young age. And then going to a complete foreign country, it would just be, it's crazy to see, and it's like a kind of a lot. And I feel like you always joke, you're like, I don't really remember a lot of it, but I guess that kind of makes sense because there's a lot of moving pieces.
Constantly moving. And then so when I moved back, I lived with the pastor and his wife in, I think I was in Kentucky. Either Kentucky or Tennessee. I think it was Kentucky. Again, there's a lot of moving pieces, okay?
Oh my gosh.
And so I lived with them, I think, like 6 months to a year. They taught me how to drive. They taught me, like, just a lot of different things. They encouraged me to go to college. They helped me get my first job. So it was really cool to live with them and to just, like, I don't know, be taught things that I hadn't been taught, that normally people at my age already had experienced or knew. So, like I said, they encouraged me to go to college. So from there, I went to college at Crown College of the Bible in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh my gosh.
That was quite the experience. Very strict, very, very strict.
More IFB, right?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Just making sure.
Yep.
Okay, I have to ask you, for how strict you were raised, were you just like in total rebellion against your parents whenever you got into that relationship at 13 with the 18-year-old? Were they?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it was more like, I don't have anybody here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And he's somebody who likes me. And at first it was just friends, and then it turned into more.
Got it.
So yeah, I think it was just like, he's the only person I have, so I need somebody,
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of.
Were your parents like kind of freaking out about it with how strict they were?
Yeah. Well, and they didn't know about it for a good probably 2 years. They didn't know about it for a long time.
Okay. Now that makes a lot more sense. So you were being okay.
So yes, very.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
I'll just put a pin in that one.
Yeah, sorry. We're back at the Crown University of the Bible.
Yeah.
So
and actually this goes along with what you're asking.
Okay.
So,
yes, it does. It's a.
So I really liked it there. It was way too expensive for me. I had no business being there. So I only went like 1 or 2 semesters, but the first, I think, semester I was there was this guy there that really wanted to take me to our Valentine's banquet, and I was like, I have a boyfriend, and you know that. And it was basically just like, I guess I'll break up with my boyfriend because I like you. And because during that time, while I was there, any phone call we had, it was very. All he wanted was sexual things. Our whole relationship, and again, 5 years older than me, so
yeah. When you being so young is like, that's why I asked, because I'm like, I'm sure a lot of people viewing that would be like, whoa, like 13, 18.
And my parents didn't know any of that was going on or anything.
Yeah. And you probably didn't even know it was wrong.
I didn't even know what sex was until it happened.
And that's like the idea of being in that super strict environment, and being like innocent and not knowing things. You don't talk about it. Yeah, that's Yep.
And so I finally realized, like, that's all he cares about. He doesn't actually care about me. And so I broke up with him, called him, hey, I'm going to a Valentine's banquet with somebody, so I'm breaking up with you, basically. And never talked to him again.
Wow.
And we had a good, I say good, it wasn't great relationship with the other guy, too. But again, we were the 6-inch rule at college, and we found ways to break that. I'll say that. Yeah. And so, just not a good relationship there either, really. But he broke up with me like 6 months after we started dating, I think and it was Christmas break, so I came home, and I was very sad and upset. And then I was working at Cracker Barrel with Cheyenne and one of my friends at the time, and she was like, well, my boyfriend has a brother who's really cute, and he just got his hair cut because he used to have really long hair, not attractive. And so I was just like, I do not want to date anybody right now. I hadn't been single since I was 11.
Oh my god.
So literally, that's crazy, right? I was single for about a month, I think. And so I was like, I really don't want another relationship, but I guess I'll say hi. I'll give you a shot. So she surprised me and brought him to Cracker Barrel one day, and they showed up, and I was all like flustered and like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. Why did she bring him here? And he thought the same about me. And so we started dating, and then we dated for I think about 2 years, and then he proposed on my birthday, my 21st birthday. And then I think we were engaged for like 8 months, maybe. I timing on things, I don't know. But and then about 3 or 4 months after we got married, we found out we were pregnant, which was quite the shock. You would think I would know what happens, you know? But here we were.
Oh my gosh.
And so we got pregnant. We were super excited, obviously nervous and freaked out, but we were excited. And about a month or 2 later, I miscarried. So I miscarried that pregnancy super hard. I mean, it was the hardest thing either one of us had ever been through. It's very sad. And then I immediately was like, we have to get pregnant again. Like, I need a baby now.
Yeah.
I was very excited for this, and it was taken away, and now I need a baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we got pregnant pretty quickly after, I think. I honestly don't remember. We got pregnant pretty quickly after, though, I think. And got past 13 weeks. Everything was great. We were so excited because we made it past that, like, scary part. Pregnancy was super easy. I was very, very sick, but it was easy for the most part. And then Christmas Eve, we were in Illinois for Christmas with family, and I hadn't felt in moving that whole day. So I called the doctor, and they were just like, just drink some orange juice, get some sugar, and you lay down and see if he starts moving or whatever. So I did that, and he still wasn't moving. So we ended up going to the hospital, and on the way there, we were both like very excited. We were we didn't know what that could mean. We just thought, oh, he could be in distress, maybe.
Yeah, because you were pretty far along.
Yeah, I was 39 weeks, so a week from my due date. So we both thought, like, we're having a baby today. This is awesome, you know?
Yeah.
We didn't really think, like, something was actually wrong.
Right.
So we got there. Sorry, my throat. So we got there and got hooked up to the ultrasound. The nurse was looking, and she just immediately turned it off, didn't show me anything, and she's like, I'm going to go grab your doctor. And again, I still really wasn't thinking anything about it. And then he came back in and did an ultrasound, and I just remember him showing me the screen of Colby, like the picture of the ultrasound or whatever. And normally, I mean, I had gotten ultrasounds before, and normally the baby's moving around and all of that, and I just remember it being like an actual picture, like that's how like still it was. And he said that he was gone, and I don't know, I don't remember much of that after. I remember calling family and just telling them that he was gone, and family obviously like freaking out.
Yeah.
And friends, and so that was really, really hard. The doctor asked, like, do you want to have him tonight, or do you want to wait a few days? Since it's Christmas Eve, like, do you want to get through the holidays, or do you want to do it now? And so we really were like, we want to wait a few days because we're going to pray for a miracle. And it always kills me when I say that.
Yeah.
Because I do know miracles happen, but like, I just really thought that was going to happen for us, and then it didn't. So we spent that whole 4 days praying, like, nonstop. I've never prayed so much in my life. And I mean, there are people, just literally people I don't know.
Yeah.
entire town of Sullivan.
Yeah.
And people far away that I never met, I will never meet, that were praying for this miracle. And I was just like, this is going to happen. Like, God is going to bring him back to life, and it's going to be okay. And I remember, like, literally, I was 39 weeks pregnant. Huge. I get huge pregnant.
Jessica's a very small person.
Yeah, and so I was huge, and I crawled into his crib in the room we had ready for him and just bawled and prayed and, like, begged for this miracle. Because we had everything ready. We had his room ready. We had a car seat in the car. Like, we were ready for a baby.
Right.
And so we were supposed to be at the hospital, we thought, 4 p.m. on the 28th of December. Turns out our nurse called us at like 5 a.m. Hey, where are you? We were like, well, we thought we were supposed to be there at 4 p.m., so we're not there. We're sleeping.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, we'll just get here as soon as you can. So I don't remember when we got there, but it was crazy how it worked out, because had we gotten there when we were supposed to, we wouldn't have the nurse that we had. And the nurse that we had, her name was Jessica, and she was seriously the best nurse. Mm-hmm. She, like, handled our hearts perfectly. And we told her, like, we want this to be as normal as possible because we're praying for a miracle. Yeah. And we're praying that everything's okay. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but she didn't, like, just shut that down. You know, she was like, I don't remember, but she was very kind about it. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I wanted the whole pregnancy I had planned. I want to have a natural delivery. I want to go into labor on my own. I don't want an epidural, like all these things. And I was like, I just want this to be as normal as possible. And even if, I don't think I really like thought of this in the moment, but even if he's not going to be alive, I still want to have that memory with him and that, like, experience. Yeah. Because it could be the only one. Yeah. And so, of course, I had to be induced because my water didn't break or whatever, so. Yep. I was induced, which apparently makes the pain worse, but in my head, I was like, I'm already in enough emotional pain. This pain is nothing, whatever. Yeah. Bring it. So I was induced. His labor was super fast. I think it was like 3 hours or something like that. Like my whole labor and delivery from the time they broke my water until when I had him. And I don't know. I just remember he was born like 3 hours later, full-size baby. I think he was 7-12. And he was not alive. We did not have our miracle like we thought we were going to have. And I just remember, like, we got to give him a bath and dress him in his going home outfit. And we got to hold him, and my mind was, we're never going to get to do anything with him again, so we need to do everything that we can. So, we did all that with him. We held him. We sang to him. And then we let our family come in a few hours, I think, after we had him. And I don't remember a ton about that, but I think only a couple people held him, because by that time he was already, like, his body was really rough already. He had already passed away 4 days ago. Yeah. And so he was very fragile. Yeah. And so only a couple people held him, which looking back, I want to be like, I wish I would have forced every single person
Yeah.
to hold him.
Yeah.
Whether they wanted to or not. But I remember just all of our family coming in, and I don't even know how it was brought up or how it happened. Let me go back for a second because I forgot this part. We had Joy FM playing while we were in labor, and the song that was playing when he was born was, I can't even remember who it's by, but it's the one that says, "The God of angel armies is always by your side." And so since then, that's always been like something that just is like, he was there.
Yeah.
You know. But all of our family came in, and then we just all sang worship songs. Like, to everyone not a Christian, that would be so weird. Like, but it was very comforting to us, and just like praising him for the baby that we had, even though we only had 6 hours with him, you know, and getting to do that. And I think since then, actually, which I never really realized, worship has been like a huge part for me. Like, I always like just connect with worship songs so much.
Yeah.
And so that was just really cool. I don't know how to explain it, but and then it was time for the nurse to take him because he was just really deteriorating, and that part was the hardest part. Was just knowing like I'm not gonna see him again until heaven. And I remember just like, I don't remember for sure if Michael held me back, but I'm pretty sure, like, in my mind, it was like, hold me back because I'm going to beat up this lady that's taking my baby.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to say about Jessica too. She had several losses too, so she really knew like where it was at.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest God thing. Like I said, had we gone in when we were supposed to, we would not have had her, and we could have had somebody who was just like, nah,
Whatever.
know.
Yeah.
It's just a baby.
Very, like,
Or whatever, you know how people
Dismissive,
are, you know.
Yeah. Like, God, even though you went through that very traumatic period, like, the God of comfort was
He was
there.
taking care of me,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was hard, like her taking him. And then we just went home. I think the next day we went home, and I don't remember much of the next 6 months probably. I was very depressed, very suicidal. Yeah, I just don't really remember a lot. Very mad at God. Just in a really, really dark place. Just thinking like, why didn't he give me this miracle? I prayed so hard and I believed you.
Yeah.
I didn't doubt you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now look, like I don't have a baby, and I'm mad at you because you didn't do what I asked you to do, and I believed with all of my heart.
Yeah.
Like they always say, like, just takes a little mustard seed and you'll get a miracle, you know? And that's just what I thought. And then to not get that was super crushing, and it really did make me mad at God for a while. And I always believed in him. Like I knew it was real.
Yeah.
And I knew he was in my heart, you know, but I was just mad. Like, how could you not?
Yeah.
You know, after all the things that I've been through, after I've been a pastor's kid and I've been a missionary's kid and I've done all these things. And
you're like, why do I deserve this?
Why me?
Yeah.
And, but, you know, also I was not a good person, but, you know, in the time I was just like, why me? This is stupid. And so that was really hard. I remember at church one morning. I think it was Easter, the Easter after. Joni was singing the Ocean song.
Yeah.
And I don't really remember a lot, but how many times, we should have counted how many times I'm going to say I don't remember.
I'm
this
sure
is my
it's
whole
okay.
thing.
I'm sure we could go back and figure that out.
But I just remember that, like, Melissa Porter was there, standing by me during worship, and I just started sobbing. And I had been very numb this whole time. I was on depression medicine. I literally felt like a zombie. Like,
Yeah.
I was depressed and suicidal, but also still felt like just a zombie, like a shell of myself, like nothing there.
Yeah.
And I remember just breaking down during that song. And I don't even remember, like, really what part, like, spoke to me or why it spoke to me or what. But I just remember, like, asking Melissa to pray for me, and she prayed for me. And after that, I really felt like God was telling me, like, I've been here this whole time.
You just were overwhelmed with his presence.
Yeah. I've been here holding you.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I'm mad at you, and also, where are you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
I'm mad at you, but I still want you.
Yeah.
Where are you at? And so I just remember, like, after that, thinking, God telling me, like, I've been here this whole time. Like, you just didn't, you didn't see me or whatever. I don't know. But, so I feel like that's kind of when I started, feeling better and stuff. It was still really hard, like, seeing people get pregnant, seeing pregnancy announcements, and babies being born, and me having to pretend to be happy for them, or when people got pregnant, not be like, good luck with that,
Yeah.
And so I was still very, like, cynical.
Yeah.
But even until, so I had a really hard time with all, like, just pregnancy and babies, and even, like, little kids. And about six months later, I don't know timing, but about 6 months later, maybe, my sister-in-law was pregnant with her baby, and she was having her baby shower, and it was just really hard. Like, of course I was happy for her and for them and for our family to have a baby, but it was just hard. Like, I should already have a baby.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to say too, because this is part of the story. She found out she was pregnant the day before we found out Colby had passed away. So just God's timing of all this was crazy, because she found out, she announced it the day before we found out. And so just the timing, because had she announced it even a week later, like, it would have been soul crushing.
Yeah. Yep.
And so found out that. Then when came time for the baby shower, I found out that morning I was pregnant with Sadie. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that.
And then I'm thinking,
Day before the bridal or the baby shower?
The day of the baby shower.
Oh, after you went or before?
Before.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which was hard because I wanted to tell everybody, but I was like, I can't tell anybody today. And then I think it was the day he was born. Yeah. The day he was born, we found out she was a girl. I could be off on
Like,
my
just how
incidents, but literally the day of something big in her pregnancy with him.
Yeah. It was almost
God was just like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and
just giving me little glimpses of hope.
Yeah.
You know?
Especially because you had almost that pregnancy as a timeline for what happened with Colby, because it was just right there, and each step God was like, I am showing you that I'm here.
Yeah.
And with every milestone that, of course, you're so happy, you know, for your sister-in-law and all of those celebrations, and even that little bit of doubt of worry on you of like, are you here, God? He's like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah. And we found out Sadie was a girl really early because we luckily got a high-risk doctor, which typically you can't get into unless you've had 3 losses. So even that alone was a big deal that we got into a high-risk doctor. So I had started bleeding like really early with her and thought I was going to lose her. And so then we went for an ultrasound and found out she was a girl. So that's how we found out early. And then I had ultrasounds very regularly after that. And then the day he was born, or I can't remember if we were there the day he was born. I feel like we probably wouldn't have been, but we went later while they were in the hospital still. And that was so hard. Like going back into a hospital, number one. Mm-hmm. But then to be like going into this happy time of someone having a baby and me having to, like, I was happy for them, but for me, I was just like, this isn't fair. Yeah. You know? So it was a really, like, just such a hard balance of, like, being angry and being happy at the same time. Yeah. And I just remember, like, I started to go into the room and I couldn't, like, my legs just would not work, and I literally sat on the ground and cried. And I feel bad for that, because I just feel bad for just not being, just suck it up, you're okay, you know? Yeah. But I remember his grandparents just, like, loving me and telling me it was okay and, you know, whatever. So I finally went in and met him, and he's awesome. And it was good. And so then, I don't know. It was just a really stressful pregnancy with Sadie. She was pretty easy, other than me being just completely sick again, literally throwing up like 10 times a day for like 20 weeks. It was awful. But pretty easy, other than the early bleeding thing. Yeah. And then we got induced a couple weeks early because my mental state was like starting to not be good. Just worrying about like getting closer to that time. Yeah. So she was born at 36 weeks. She was super easy, super fast. No epidural, anything with her either. And of course I was induced again, but it was good. And then we had Cooper, 2 years later. I found out with him that I had a blood clotting disorder, so that they think maybe is the reason why Colby passed away, because there was never any reason, which was really, really hard too. And just like, I just want to know why, like what happened, you know, drove me crazy. Like thinking, did I drink too much coffee that day, or was it because I played Just Dance with my cousins last night? You know, like, what did I do? Yeah. Which turns out, funny enough, my body was the one that did it. So that too, when I found out, was like it is my fault. My body betrayed me. That's how I felt. So that was hard to deal with for a while, just knowing like it's my fault in a way.
Yeah, like you were really hard on yourself with it, but like do you feel like the bird's eye view now, knowing like truly it wasn't anything you could have done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had no idea. Like,
there was nothing.
Had we known, we could have done things, but there's nothing we could have done.
Yeah.
And, like, I was a freak about, like, I can't eat these things, I can't do these things because I'm pregnant. I can't, like, I did everything I could to keep him safe, you know?
Yep.
There wasn't anything that I could have done that, you know, did that. So, but when I was pregnant with Cooper, they found out that I had this blood clotting disorder, and I had to take blood thinning shots in my stomach every day, which was
every day.
Too bad. Yeah,
That's
every day.
crazy.
I think twice a day.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it wasn't too bad. I mean, it hurt, but it's worth it, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so I had such an easy pregnancy with him. I was so sick with the other two, and then with him, I was just like perfect. Like never sick. I think I got the flu once, but like never sick or nauseous or anything. And I was like, well, you know how they say, like, with boys, you're not sick, or girls, you're sick, or whatever. I was like, well, this one's got to be an alien or something, because my boy and my girl, I was so sick, and this time I'm not. So what's going on? But, so, that was nice. But then his birth was so traumatic. So, they're all just dramatic. The kids are just dramatic. Still are.
That's funny.
But his birth was really hard. It was only like 6 hours long. Like all my births were super quick. So he was born. He was stuck for a while. The doctor had to like physically turn him for him not to be stuck. Mind you, no epidural. This is very painful. But he said if that wouldn't have worked, he would have had to push him back in, which probably would have killed him, and do a C-section. Because he was stuck for a while. But that worked. He came out. He was black, like not breathing completely. Like his whole face was just black. And they showed him to me for just a second. And I think I knew something was off because my doctor was always like very funny, very jokey, even through like delivery and stuff. And he got really serious. And so they showed him to me, and I just remember like crying, and there were like 4 or 5 people in there with us because I really just wanted them to be in there and have that experience. So they were all also freaking out. I remember like seeing them, like their faces just like scared to death. I know Michael's mom like dropped to the ground praying. Like they took him over to work on him. Michael's like with me, and I am just over and over and over again, like, not again, not again, not again. Is he okay? Why are you over here with me? Like, go to him, make sure he's okay. Meanwhile, I'm like bleeding out. I had no idea because, and Michael, I guess, realized that. So it was very scary for both of us for a minute. And they finally got him breathing, but I couldn't hear him crying because they had the oxygen thing on him. And I was just like, why isn't he crying yet? Like, what's going on? And they said he was breathing, he's okay. But I was like, well, why isn't he crying? And I just remember me just being like very like angry at everybody around. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you over here with me? Go to him.
Yeah.
And so anyway, finally got him under control. I got to hold him for maybe 30 seconds, and they took him to the NICU. So he was in the NICU for maybe a week. I can't remember how many days exactly, but he was in the NICU, so that was really hard. It probably wasn't a week because we got to stay there the whole time with him, which maybe, looking back, the doctor probably told them you're not sending her home without her baby. She will flip.
Yeah.
Because he knew all of my history and knew I was very mentally, like, not okay with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think we were there for 3 or 4 days, which with a natural birth, like, you just go home the next day normally.
Right.
But so we got to stay there with them. Sadie came up and met him when he was in the NICU. We couldn't hold him for a little while. But he was fine. Finally took him home. And he was in a lot of pain for a while because of the delivery. And chiropractor worked miracles on him. Like, I cannot even express how awesome chiropractors have been for so many things. But that was the start of our chiropractor experience.
Yeah.
And then, gosh, so much has happened since then.
Yeah.
Like, life with kids is crazy.
Yeah.
And it goes by so fast. Sadie's almost 11.
Jeez.
Cooper's 8. But since then, I guess COVID maybe is where things really started getting crazy again in life. Like, it's pretty smooth sailing for a while, I think. But I was really struggling in our marriage. Like, I got to the point at one point, like, if Michael tried to hold my hand, I would just be, like, disgusted. Like, do not touch me. Why are you touching me? Or, like, he would try to put his arm around me at church on the back of the chair, and I would just, like, lean forward so he would not be touching me. Like, very subtle things that he probably noticed, but I thought he didn't notice.
Yeah.
But I was just, like, done with him.
Yeah.
And then I was very much in the mindset of, like, I know divorce is not okay if you don't have a biblical reason, but I can't deal with this. Like, and it really wasn't anything crazy that he was doing. Like, I just felt like he wasn't being the person I wanted him to be, you know? And so during that time, though, so many marriages around me were falling apart. My parents got divorced, and my sister got divorced, and this is probably not exactly the right timeline, but in my mind, I feel like it was during COVID. It could have been a year or two difference, but and then there were, like, people in our church, very influential, that were going through things, and just, like, so many relationships falling apart, people cheating on people, like, just crazy. And it made me, like, really think, like, that could be me in 2 seconds if I don't figure out why I'm feeling this way, you know? And I can't remember who it was, and I want to say it was Joni, because she just always has these things that she says that just impact me so hard.
Yeah.
But it was just like, basically, you should check your heart too, because I don't know. I just remember, like, thinking that, like, maybe it's me, and I remember her saying, like, pray that God shows you your heart and where you're off here, because the things he was doing he wasn't cheating on me. He wasn't doing all these crazy things. Like, it was just little annoyances that husbands just are. But it was, like, just angering me so much. Like,
do you think it was because of a lot of the residual stuff around you, though, where you were seeing relationships fall apart and things happening, and then you were kind of thinking, like, internally a lot of, like, oh, like, that's what's going on in my own relationship right now, because I'm unhappy because he hasn't done X and Y and Z, and, like you said, nothing even outlandish or sinful or whatever, but just you're unhappy because he's not checking certain boxes in your relationship, and then you're kind of flipping that around and internalizing it and looking around you and saying, well, these people must have been unhappy because of that, and like now,
Yeah.
so I not justified, but like you kind of just getting that feedback into your own relationship and thinking like, this is it, like my relationship's over because of that.
Yeah, I think that was part of it too.
Yeah.
But then also on the other hand, like, it's gonna be over if I don't figure out what is wrong, because I knew it was a heart thing on my end too, because I felt like I literally hate you for no reason. And
it was almost like, I remember, because I knew you a little bit during that season, it was almost like if something would have happened, that would have been your you're like, praise, like it was just like, praise God that something didn't happen, because you know in your heart then that it would have been like,
like, good, now I have a reason. So because I really was like, just give me a reason and I'm gone, you know. So but then just seeing like these people cheated on these people or whatever, like I could be there so easily because I'm like with my husband, and if one guy gave me attention, I would probably be there too. So I can't, first of all, it made me think I can't judge them because I just haven't been given the opportunity, you know. And it
was almost like humbling of like,
coming to that realization of like, oh, I'm like one temptation away from being in the same boat of the same, like the people that I'm looking around and thinking, well, your marriages are falling apart, and that's
so just that all happening during that same time really made me like ask God to correct things in me that I didn't see or whatever, and just ask God like, help me love my husband again, because I do not love him. And like, you know, people say they fall out of love, they've fallen out of love with their partner or whatever, and that was how I felt. I was just like, I just don't love him, help me love him, because I have 2 kids, I can't just leave him, and also I don't believe that that's right to leave him for no reason, you know. And so
in this, did you discover that love is a choice that you were actively having to make, and that it's not just something that, because I feel like you just said that well, but like there's a bit of a disconnect somewhere in those earlier years of marriage where you have all of these feelings and everything that's kind of propelling you forward is so emotional based, and you're like, wow, I just love this person, and everything about them is special, and everything they do is great. And then it's like, as the relationship goes on more and more, you're like, wow, I really don't like this, I don't like that about you, and the like all these flags start popping up, and you're looking at things that they do, and then slowly over time you realize that that original momentum of feeling and just the way that you felt and all the things that you thought were cool about somebody it's not enough to really get you to stay. And so you're thinking like, okay, now I have to make the active choice and be aware of all the reasons that I actually love you, and then I have to get rid of, like in my brain, I have to sort of almost disassociate the negative things that seem so much more, you know, great than the positive things, and actually really just hone in on all the original reasons why I loved you, and actively make the choice every day to wake up and say, I love you. Like, no matter your flaws, no matter the things that I think that are, you know, but I actually love you. And that's like a big... Yeah.
And I'm still learning that it's...
it's a process.
Choice.
Yes.
And I don't think really in that time that I learned that maybe, or understood that. I just finally got to the point where I was okay with him touching me, you know, and that was good enough. I was happy enough to be okay and not angry, you know. So, which is funny because looking back, this is scary too. Looking back, right before all this happened in our marriage, I gave my story at church. And I was in such a good spot with God for like a year. Like the best spot I had ever been in. And just really, really good. And then soon after I gave my story at church, everything just like was so different and awful.
Yeah.
So, God, please. Not that I'm doing it again. Can you please be nice this time?
No, and I think it just goes back to the idea of, we were talking about how easy it is and how you could see yourself so easily falling into a lot of those same traps that people were. And it just reminded me of putting on the armor of God every morning and knowing that our marriages are under attack, especially if we are walking and growing with the Lord, because that's not what the enemy wants. And not saying that it's super doom and gloom and all of the things, but we do have to wake up every morning and put on the armor of God, be able to be in the Word, be in prayer, ask your friends to be praying for your marriage, and how important that is. Because if we always say this saying, if you're not working on your marriage, you're working on your divorce. And a strong marriage can do a lot of amazing things for the kingdom.
I think it's hard too whenever you think about I think you have some really great points there. I think in your context though as well, when you think about the way you were raised, the marriages that you probably saw, like a lot of the things that you had been through already, because I think a lot of people tend to not be active, like you were just saying, in their marriages. They tend to just like think that passively things are going to work out, because passively a lot of times in the beginning of the relationship things do work out because you have all the feelings and all the emotions and everybody's so in love, and then you don't realize how active you have to become until it's later. And what's funny is like we were talking about all the things in the past and like all the people that you were looking at, the relationships falling apart, and it's almost like you didn't have a ton of great role models either to look up to when you're saying like, my parents were getting divorced, my sister's getting divorced, all these people I knew were, their relationships were falling apart. And so you're looking around and it's like, I don't have these people that I look to and see inspiration. I'm seeing this like, well, like I guess that's just what's coming down the tubes, is divorce, and everybody hates each other eventually.
Or what you chose to see in that season too, because of your heart posture. Because I mean, if you would probably truly step back and look, you do have people in your life that do have great marriages as well.
Oh, of course.
And it's just seeing, because of that mental state, it's so easy to pick out all the other things because it's almost like, well, that's normal. Well, that's normal. And almost choosing every day, almost like how you choose to love your spouse, to choose to seek after those people who do have good, healthy, biblical relationships, like your in-laws and, the other people around you that have good, and just being able to choose to look for that. But also, we were talking about choosing to be able to arm yourself with prayer and things like that, and it's not like something where once you do it once and it's a great season of marriage, it's just like everything else in life. And even with us, how it's
ebbs and flows.
Yes.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that was definitely a hard time, but I felt like, I'm okay now. I don't know. There was no like big moment or anything like that. It was just like slowly God was like softening my heart to him again.
That's
and
huge.
like I do love him.
Yep.
And
it's huge because one of like the biggest indicators of divorce is contempt, bitterness, disgust. Like you're saying, those are like the things where if you see that in couples, you're like, oh, okay, that's gonna not last long. So the Lord really leading you out of that season, even if there wasn't this aha moment, but it was more of a slow and gradual thing, is really huge.
And it's so important, I think, to talk to people about that too, because like I remember in that time I talked to you guys so much too, and several people, but you, Matt, specifically were really like saying things I didn't like.
Oh, I remember you came to me and I told you something and I was like, man, she probably really did not want me to tell her that.
But it was good, and I took it to heart and really examined myself, and
I believe it was this idea of because we had been super into Love and Respect at the time. That's a fantastic book, but I remember thinking of this idea of like you have to respect your husband even when he's not deserving of it, and that was something because and I remember even trying to walk you through this idea of like you're not always acting in a way that is deserving of being loved, right? Like, and this is a spousal thing, so I'm like, you as a wife do not always act in a way that deserves of love, just like your husband does not always act in a way that is deserving of respect. And then the key thing is doing it regardless of what you quote unquote deserve, because almost like what you were saying earlier when you were getting into God, like, why do I deserve this? Like, why is this happening to me? And then you're like, take a step back and you're like, oh, I'm not a good person. Like, I haven't been great. And it's like that in your relationship way more than you realize, where you're like, oh, I'm being selfish and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And so I remember telling you that and saying, because I think the analogy I remember using was that, like, God loves you regardless of what you deserve. Because essentially, like, we're not deserving of the unconditional love that he shows us. And so that was a huge thing of like, your husband is deserving of that respect regardless of the situation, that you find yourself in right now. And especially the situation you were in, because you were saying, nothing crazy is going on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need to move out of the house because of abuse or something like that. And I'm like, I just remember thinking, like, if this is truly you just not liking certain aspects, it's like, we just have to kind of bear into your relationship and really almost like kind of work on that instead of just pulling away like so that was I remember you leaving, and I literally sat down with Mia and I was like, man, I don't think Jessica's ever going to want to be our friend again. Because I just gave her some really hard advice, and I think she's just going to like, nope, I don't want to do anything. Like, that was rough.
No, I remember leaving and being like, I do not like that.
And I thought, I equated that with like, she does not like us right now. Like, she does not like what I just told her. So.
Yeah. But I think it's important to talk to people about it that you trust and that are godly influences and are going to lead you in a godly way, not someone who's like, just divorce him. Like, I wouldn't put up with that,
Oh, yeah.
Because I have had people say those things to me.
Will.
And
very worldly.
It makes me think, like, okay, permission,
Yeah, exactly. Like, someone's telling me that
you have to talk to people who are godly and, about it. But it's nice to know, like, everyone goes through that, you know? Like, it's not, no one is perfect.
Absolutely.
No one's marriage is perfect.
And you never arrive at this blissful, I mean, okay, maybe I shouldn't say that yet, because, we haven't been married that long, and
going on 6 years, so yes, not super long compared to other couples. That's true.
It would be interesting to sit down with someone who has been married a long time.
Yeah.
But in any relationship, though, there's always work to be done, and you don't ever like get to this point of arrival. I almost imagine it of you get to one place, and then you could maybe have but then you just build on top, and your relationship just gets stronger over time. And I think that there is a lot of strength on your side of being able to push back your feelings of, I'm done. I just want to give up on this, to, no, I'm going to take the step of, even when I feel like he doesn't deserve it, I'm going to show him, respect in this way. And just like you said, it's not this aha moment. It's just all of the baby steps that you've taken to now, whenever you look back, you're like, oh wow, we did come really far, even though it might not always feel that way. And I think it's important for people to know, and something that we've talked about is when we do these testimony videos, I don't want it to be something where it's like, I've arrived and now everything's great, because I don't want to paint this picture that life with Christ is this arrival moment and it's super blissful, because we're always going to have some sort of struggle and some sort of thing that he's putting us through, so that way ultimately we become stronger in him, and how when we try to do it on our own, how much we fail, and how much he wants us to practice that leaning on him in hard moments, whenever our first reaction is, no, I want to do it by myself. I've got this. But our feelings are fickle, and we can't put our trust in ourselves, because we're always ever changing. Our emotions are up and down.
Yep.
But he never changes. His word never changes.
I think when people give their story,
Yeah.
you usually end on this like mountaintop experience.
Yeah.
Like my marriage is amazing and it's completely healed and all these things, and like people sometimes don't get to see your like true where you're actually at the end of those, like and that I am in like a very weird season. Like it's just like it's not good and it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's just like rough. You know, it's just hard. Like trying to grow our marriage. We just started going to counseling. That's been huge. Like we've never gone to counseling before, and so that's been good. But just like trying to, I realize that I need to work on myself, have God work on me, show me things where I'm wrong, and just like I'm working on myself and praying for him, just praying that God will work on his heart while he's working on my heart. And just
I think that there's a lot of wisdom in knowing, like, hey, when is it where we need to seek counseling, where we need to seek that that professional help, because you guys have been through a lot. And knowing too that that's something that I hope and pray for just the whole Christian community or other communities, that counseling becomes not so taboo and normalized. Because that's a huge part of our testimony, and how impactful that is, and how just being able to break down the past, or how to practically move forward and grow. And I think it's great that people hear that it's okay to talk about your season. It's okay to be a Christian, or like a good Christian that's able to share their powerful testimony when you're still walking through it. And there isn't this big aha moment, but knowing and having the faith that God lives within me, he's working through me every day, and that I want to walk with him even when times are hard. And I want people to know that it's okay to not be okay. And you don't have to act like you are, and it's actually super unhelpful to yourself and detrimental to yourself
and to other people.
And other people if
you put on a facade all the time and just act like things are, well, because then people, because
for me, I see people and I'm like, oh, their marriage is great.
Exactly.
And I compare mine to them, and that's not healthy either. And
you're like, wow, this is so ingenuine.
And then but then when you have problems and go to people, you realize like, oh, they're not where you thought they were either. So if we could just all be
a little
true
more open
about it and open about it, then I think it would be so helpful, because we're just all trying to figure it out. And all trying to...
That's so key right there. Like everybody's always in the most hard season of life because it's the present, right? And even if you're in like the best time, like there are still hard things and you're still trying to figure things out. And so I feel like you said it earlier about, well, I feel like I should end on a mountaintop or whatever, and it's I feel like people who do that, once again, are sometimes being a little disingenuous with things, because they're not bringing up like the hard things that are still going on in their life, you know. So that's
And God is like working in my life, and I am
you see
like
him.
I feel like there's very much a shift that I feel. I don't know how to explain that, but like my life feels very strange right now because I feel like something, maybe that I'm looking at a mountaintop, or that something is happening, moving,
like you
changing.
feel his presence, and in little things like we were talking about earlier, how the idea of God kind of almost like speaking to you in a way of like he put something in your heart that maybe you wouldn't have even brought up.
Yeah, and that's never been like my mindset or how my brain works. Like I don't think of these things, but I've had so many things recently that God's just been like, hey, putting these two things together. But like me and Michael were trying to be a little more active, so we were walking together for a couple weeks until my foot started hurting me. But he walked so slow, and I wanted to walk fast because I'm trying to lose weight, trying to do this. I don't really have time to walk, but here we are, so let's go.
Yeah.
And so we're walking, and I'm just like, good luck to you. I'm going up there because I can't walk slow. Like this is pointless. And then after, I don't know, a couple days or something of doing that, I was like, maybe I should walk with him. Let's try to slow down a little bit. I'll hold his hand, whatever. Maybe I can drag him a little, make him walk a little faster. And so I physically like held his hand and basically drug him. I mean, like he was behind, my arm was behind me trying to walk. And I'm sure he noticed. Yeah, how could you not? But so he sped up a little bit, and then so that frustrated me, and then I finally was like, okay, just be with him. Like, you're still getting exercise, you're still like you're walking, it's okay, you don't have to walk fast to be walking. And so I held his hand and just walked at the pace he was walking at, and God was like, this is your life. You're constantly trying to drag him. You're constantly like, get on my level, you know. Just sit with him. Just be with him. Just love him for who he is, and just try to be okay with it. Mm-hmm. And so that's like, that really since then too has been something that I'm like, okay, just be okay with not being okay with where we're at because we need to grow, but being okay in this season and just like being patient with him and pray that God's doing something.
And it's something too, but the idea of like growth for both of you, because you're talking about how you're growing a lot through this season, and how, I mean, whatever, men are just in general with their emotions and everything, and it's just very different. And when we talk about all of the trauma and stuff that you guys have been through, the way that we react, the way that we internalize things can be so different. We don't always express them the same way. I mean, obviously, there's like a big anti-men cry culture just in general. It's like a non-masculine thing. And so there's a little bit of a taboo in our culture around men showing emotion. And I think there's a big thing there that, like, nobody cares about men's problems. Like, it's just a given that you don't talk about it, you don't show emotion, you don't open up because nobody cares about your problems. And then there's a fear that's even permeated our culture that if you are a man and you do express emotion, or you are vulnerable, especially with another person, a woman, that they're going to then take advantage of you for being vulnerable and think less of you for that. So I think this is just an encouragement to all the Christian men out there to break that kind of stigmatism that's around that, because the shortest verse in the Bible is Jesus wept, right? Like it was okay for the God of creation to weep even when his friend passed away. And so the idea there is that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel the emotions that God that he put in you to feel. And I think that's just an encouragement for not feeling weird about expressing emotion, not feeling weird about going to counseling and being vulnerable, because some of those deep issues, like you were saying, we tend to just shut down over and not actually express anything. And then it leads to a lot of other emotions when we haven't processed that properly, of like, now I'm apathetic, now I'm angry, now I'm, all these different ways that can be expressed because I didn't actually deal with the thing, several years ago even, that was traumatic for me, because I just felt like nobody cared. So,
and I think that's something that you've grown in a lot since we've gotten married, thinking about like the first couple years of how I didn't really see a lot of emotion, when it came to, I'm always been an emotional person, but that was something that I've seen a lot of growth in you with too, of being able to, one, even be willing whenever I was struggling on myself mentally to just sit here with me during counseling, and then how much, even though we didn't necessarily go for marriage counseling, it was more like I needed it, and through that you were willing to sit with me through it, but how much it grew us in our marriage because of that, and you learning to open up and be, express your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts instead of letting it build up and it come out in other ways.
Bottle up, cause some kind of fight or something, because later I exploded because I didn't just tell you the first time that something bothered me. Instead, I was just like, I'll just let this go and let it go and let it go and let it go. And then you're like, I can't let it go anymore all of a sudden.
Yeah, and it's just an ever-growing process of learning how to open up and be empathetic and with your spouse.
Yeah, definitely with your spouse. I think that's the key part there too. Is
I think it's interesting too what you said about like culture and how they see men now, and like I never really thought about that, I guess, until recently. I told you earlier I was reading The Power of a Praying Wife, and all of these chapters about literally everything was really like, ooh, ouch, I do that. And I never thought that I not like degraded men or whatever, but just, it is crazy how much culture is like men suck and like men are awful and they whatever, and but really it's probably a lot of us that ugliness is coming from too, and it's on both sides.
I think that's like a thing, like I was pointing out specifically about our culture with men and women too, is that men are almost more comfortable in many arenas, like sharing with other men. Not that it's all together common, but it's almost like if you put men together in a situation, sometimes they'll start like being comfortable around each other to talk about the hard things. But then when you put them around women, they're like terrified to actually be vulnerable or open about anything hard, because they think it's just like it is going to get them cut down in the eyes of women if they are vulnerable, and they will be taken advantage of in some way because they're allowing themselves to not be that strong. I always carry out everything all the time. And showing that emotion. And so, and I think that is a huge fear among men right now. And that's why there is a big disconnect between spouses, where it's like this, you're like, well, why does my husband never show emotion? Why does blah, and it's like, well, because probably at some point in his life, he did that with a woman. He expressed his emotions and was vulnerable with a woman, and then a woman cut him down at some level. And he thought, I will never do that again. It's so simple to make that.
And that could be in your marriage, because that's probably been me. I realized that recently too. Like, well, maybe he doesn't talk to me because he doesn't feel safe with me. Yeah. Because I do. I'm trying not to. I'm trying to grow, but I've realized that recently too. Like, maybe he doesn't feel like I'm a safe person to talk to. Which is probably fair.
We found out in our counseling a lot that we were bad about validating one another's feelings, because we were so quick to go to a solution. So there was never any room to actually always like vent. So if I came to Mia and I had like really strong feelings about something, it was almost like, rather than saying like, hey, I hear you, I acknowledge what's going on, she was already going to a fix. And the same thing, vice versa. Like if she came to me and was super upset about something, I was already jumping to a fix. And so it was almost like you could never be vulnerable, because you're like, well, why don't you just change this thing and be better? And you're like how does that make you feel? Like, do I want to come to you again now and tell you that I'm struggling with this thing, when immediately your response is like, well, how about you just change and be better? And you're like, oh, it's not healthy. Like, and I realized too, that's a lot of what I think tend to internally do, is like we're that hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
So
well, and I think, because I was relating that to my kids, like that starts with your childhood.
Yeah.
Like it does, because parenting is so hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like I've really tried recently to be in that spot of, don't try to fix stuff. Just sit with them, tell them, I've been there, I understand, and that really hurts. You know? And not just, well, you should just tell him to whatever, don't just stand up for yourself or whatever. Like, just sit with them and tell them that, you hear them.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be hurt.
Yep.
Yeah.
And pray for it.
Yeah.
Pray with them. So it's not a big I've arrived ending or anything, but I think that a lot of times, we need to hear the hard too.
So. Absolutely. And I think that's a big reason why, I felt like, and we felt like we wanted to do a podcast like this, is because sometimes I will say there is some podcasts that are really real, and that's great, but even just having that additional voice of, hey, we are all believers in Jesus. But we all are sinners in need of a Savior, and we're broken people, and that's okay. But being able to have a place, and even as a platform, and that's why I just appreciate you coming on here and being so vulnerable, because we're not doing this for us. We're not sitting in front of a camera being vulnerable and crying and posting this online for people to see. For us, we want to do it for, even if it's just one person out there that are struggling with their marriage, struggling with a miscarriage, struggling with a lot of these things that aren't talked about very often because it's taboo, unless it's like a very intimate setting. And some people don't have that support system in their lives right now. And in those dark times that you have been in and that I have been in before, and on completely different levels, how sometimes you just want to know that you're not alone. And that it's okay to not be perfect. So
and I think it's always weird, like, talking about counseling too, for whatever reason.
But it is a taboo around it, for sure.
But I mean, I think that it's definitely something that, just for me, I have so many different traumas in my life. Like we joked about in the beginning, like, which trauma do we want to talk about? But like, even things I didn't mention, I forgot to mention, like sexual assault. Literally my entire childhood is like, things happened. And so it's just important, I think, especially if you've had a hard life, to talk through that with somebody, and to realize, like, I do these things not because of these things or that it's an excuse, but it's it just gives you like clarity on why you do things the way that you do, or
and just to touch on one, just your strength in a lot of different areas. One, you have been through really hard things, but you've also, on both sides of your family, you have been in a Christian circle in a large way, with pastors on both sides, and being a pastor's kid, and having to just your strength of being able to break those social norms of, hey, because I'm a pastor's kid, not only on my side but on my in-laws' side, then I have to be perfect, but you being able to be vulnerable and open up about those things and say, hey, even as a quote unquote pastor's kid, I'm not perfect, and that's okay.
Definitely.
And the fact that you've let all of the traumas in your life that have happened, with the very deep and hard things, that you still can say God is good.
Yeah.
Like, you let your situations truly shape you and not scar you, because you could easily give up. You could easily say, of course I'm going to get a divorce because I've been through all of these traumas and all of this.
Look at my life.
Yeah, look at what has happened. Or, of course I'm going to give up on God because what has he done? You know, it's easy to think, what I've been put through so much turmoil following him my whole life. But to turn that around and say, no, I am a stronger person that can help other people going through these hard things because I was put through these hard things, and I can actually say, praise God for saving me through it.
And that's, I mean, like I said, worship music has always, like,
Yeah.
really deeply impacted me. And anytime a song about, like, God being good or the goodness of God or whatever is sung at church or played on the radio or wherever, it wrecks me. Because in my soul, like, I know all these things I've been through, but that is the truest thing I know, is that he's good no matter what. And he will work it out for you. And he will bring you to a place of happiness. And even though you're going to go through hard things, still, you know that he's got you. You know, and he is good. And literally, I cry so much at church. With worship songs, I look like a fool every Sunday, just tears rolling down my face.
But it's so powerful to hear you say that, like, and I hope that impacts whoever is watching that too. You hear these hard things, and you can just see how the genuine, like, God is good. And you could have every reason to say the opposite, but instead it's God is good because you see him in the small things. You see him moving in your life. You hear him. He's there, and even in the darkest times, as we've kind of pieced together, he was always there. And even if you're going through something that maybe you can't see that right now, you don't feel him, you're in that numb state, you've been in those places before, he's always there even when you don't see it now, and you don't know why you're going through what you're going through. But throughout this time, would you say that you've seen the purpose through some of it? And would you say that maybe there's some things you haven't seen the purpose of yet?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I parent a lot different than I would have from a lot of things. I mean, there's so many things that I think I would be a different person if those things hadn't happened to me in a bad way. You know, I'm a I don't know if I should say I'm a better person because of things that have happened to me.
Maybe just as strong.
But stronger, and I know that who I am in God. And the ability with you to just be there for someone who's been through those things means so much. And thinking about how many times that God has used you to be there for people when they've been through those hard things, and the things that you were a part of to advocate for hard things. So that's great. Definitely.
A lot of what we've talked about with your whole story too, in the way that you were talking about like ebbs and flows and seasons, and like how you would end on this mountaintop, but it reminds me of this saying as well, that you're either walking into a storm, through a storm, or out of a storm. And there's that little brief period where you're like out of it, but you're going into the next one. Like the next storm is coming, because that is how life is. There's always that next valley that's coming. And so it is amazing seeing how faithful God has been to not only, you, but your husband, your whole family. You have these two beautiful children now that He's really just brought you through a lot of different hard things. And
when you say that, I don't want anyone to think of life being fearful because of that, but truly that knowing that whatever storm you go through, that you don't have to have the strength to do it on your own.
Yep.
And that's like the whole hope of Jesus, and why He died on the cross for our sins, and why we don't have to walk through these things alone. And whenever you go through that storm, you're so strong now from what you've been put through the past, that you're able to walk in faith truly and say, God, wherever you take me, storm or not, you have me, and I don't have to walk through this alone.
And I do think it's funny because like what you said, like being a pastor's kid, growing up as a pastor's kid, Michael growing up as a pastor's kid, like you do feel like you have to be perfect. You have to be this perfect kid and this perfect family. And, and that alone is like a lot on a kid, you know, but even growing up, like we still think that sometimes, you know, but for me too, I think that things that I've gone through have made me more empathetic and also vulnerable. Like, I'm not afraid to show you all of me because I know that God has something in there that can help you or we can help each other through or whatever. But I think that definitely has come about because of things that I've been through, and that God's used me because to be vulnerable and have empathy. Honestly, just with you being, we're so close, that's something that I just love about you, is your ability to love people well that are hurting, and you're not afraid to get in there and sit in their mess. And that's something that's so easy for me to flee from, because that's a lot of emotion. I can't handle that. But instead, just being like, no, I'm going to sit in your mess with you. I'm going to bring the ice cream and the wine, and I'm going to sit there and just and be there with you through your hardness. And even if someone you don't even know that well, you're like, coming over. It's okay, you know, and it's going to be just awkward, but we're going to do it. We're going to get through this, because it's just great. But I appreciate you so much. And with the next question that I was going to ask was, like, what's something do you feel like that God is showing you recently in this season? And I think we touched a lot on that. I think we did, yeah. I think mostly just showing me, like, I'm not as perfect as I think I am. Yeah, like, absolutely. You're not. You need to be checking your own heart. Yeah. Checking your own actions. Yeah. And just because I see someone, I can't remember if we said it before the podcast or during, but just like noticing other people's flaws and then looking back and being like, ooh, those are actually my flaws too. Yeah, absolutely. You know? Yeah. I know we talked about that a little bit. Yeah. So I think that's where I'm at now, and it's not fun. I'm not liking it. That process. But I'm trying. That's all we can do. That's good. Well, what's something that you do in the everyday that brings you joy? Well, I can't wait until it gets cooler out. Yeah. Because I love sitting on my back porch. That's all cute and aesthetic. Yes. And just having coffee or wine or whatever with the book and the candle and the fireplace and the kids playing and Sadie pitching and just watching them, I don't know, grow up. Yeah. But my back porch is my special place. Your oasis, your cozy place. Yeah. I'm very partial to the back porch too. Yeah. All of the talks and fun times that we've had. But well, I appreciate you being on the podcast today. It has just been so great to have you on here, and you're so special to me. And thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing your story. And I know it's going to touch one of you guys out there, but
if you need to talk to anyone or just open up about some hard things, please reach out, let me know. Or if you would like Jessica's information, I can put her Instagram in the bio or the caption, so that way you can chat about maybe some hard things that you're going through. She would love to chat with you, and we would too. But thanks so much for watching today, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you.